Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual event today. My name is Elise, and I'm the Field Marketing Specialist here at Foundry. Today, we have Tom Newberry, a texture artist, as our guest speaker.
Okay, so let's just dive right in here. So I've already created a quick project here in Mari. So it just contains this one female head object. When you initially open Mari, over here it'll be set to user shader. Personally, for my workflow, I don't use this, but it is very powerful in visualizing your textures. But just make sure you set this to current channel to begin with. That's always the first step I always do when I jump into Mari. So the next step will be to create a channel, which I've already done here. So we have female head diff, and I'm only going to be going through the projection of the diffuse with you today. So here's the diffuse, and I've set it to 4K, 8-bit. Now this depends on how hero the character is. So if this face was getting extremely close to camera, I may think about taking this up to 8K. But generally, when I'm working on an asset, I keep it around 4K. It always seems more manageable than using 8K for everything. So let's just quickly go up here to the UVs, and I can show you the UV layout. And yeah, we've got it across 3 UV spaces here. If I hit Shift W, you can see the wireframe. And yeah, we're just running across 3 UV spaces. So this is already quite high in resolution, considering it's just a face and we've got it across these 3. It's taking up quite a lot of resolution. So if we set this to 8K, it would be extremely high. So there we go. Now we can get started here. First, what we're going to do is bring in some textures from Texturing XYZ. They're my favorite resource to use when dealing with texturing skin. So just pinning the image manager here, just pin that, and then we should be able to resize it here, make it a little bigger. And then on my other monitor, I've already got open here a female face from Texturing XYZ. You can also see here I've got some tilables that I've created, so cheek, cheek-o2, forehead, lips. And these tilables have been generated because we're going to have areas where these maps don't cover on our geometry, and one of those is the hair region, the hair net, the back of the neck, things like that. So I'll bring these in as well, but I show in one of my Gumroad tutorials my process in creating these tilables from the photos. So let's grab these. I don't need the displacement. So that's the displacement, and I've got a cheek displacement tile here, but I'll just drag all those over. Okay, so there we go. Those are now loaded in. And we can just start projecting. With these available, we actually don't need this one. This is the raw albedo, but we want this one where the lighting, the shadow and highlights have been removed. Okay, so let's go to layers and let's pin this really quickly. And for when I'm doing skin projection, I prefer to use, I'm just so used to using layers in the past. I'm trying to transition over to a node-based workflow at the moment, but yeah, so I'll create a layer here, and let's call this one, I'm just going to call it face front, and then color. Okay, so I like to do each angle of the face on a different layer, so it's easy to mask between the projections. So face front, so I have that now selected, and now over here I can grab this and just drag it into the viewport, and then we can go about resizing this. And now in Mari, the closer you are to a surface when you're projecting, the more resolution you're going to gain out of that, and that's because of the frame buffer. And so, without going too much into how the frame buffer works, the closer you are, the more resolution you're going to get out of it. So usually what I do is I do a general overall projection, and then I'll go in and start working on areas and project a little closer for like the eyes and things like that. So we'll go about as close as the cropping here. So you can see it's cropping off at the top of the forehead and then down to roughly the chin. So I want to keep those in frame like so. And now I'm just going to close this out because we don't need it. And then I'm just going to resize this by holding down Control Shift, and we can change the size. But we can't really see the mesh underneath, so something you can do is hold down Shift and go plus or minus. And in this case I'm hitting minus to reduce the opacity so I can better see the placement of the nose and the eyes and the mouth. And so right now the nose is lining up but the eyes aren't, so I'm going to add a bit more scale here. I'm going to keep going until all three of these. Now everyone's got a different face, so it is difficult to line these up sometimes, but I like to get as close as I possibly can. So it looks like the eyes are a little off, so I'm just going to focus on the nose and the mouth to begin with, and then I'll readjust for the eyes and eyebrows. So let's get it about there. And I like using the super soft brush. So getting a nice broad brush size. Oh, also I need to make sure that my mesh is selected. So I have that selected now. And then you can see the projection is coming through here. And now I'm just going to focus. Like, even though I'm getting a bit of the eye there, I'm going to be going over the top of that anyway, so I'm not too worried. And also, I'm not too worried about stretching, so I kind of go, I let the texture roll off the sides. Oh, I'm actually currently also projecting through the mesh right now, which means on the back faces, if I project right now, it's going to pick up this same detail, but I don't want to do that. So I'm turning that off there. And there we go. Okay, so now the way I have my settings set up is I just move the camera and then it bakes for me. You can also hit B on the keyboard and it'll bake it down. Now you can see it's not 100% in position there, but we'll come back and refine that in a moment. Okay, so now for the eyes. So just move them into place roughly. And that looks like a pretty good placement to me. Let's do this side first. And go all the way up to the top of the forehead. Okay. And then the other side I might just adjust slightly. No, it should be fine. And I'll project that as well. So yeah, in the beginning, like most things to do with asset creation, you want to work in broad strokes to start with. So I just get an overall fill in of the face here. And then as you can see now when I move the camera, we've got it stretching off the sides here. So what we want to do here now is we want to find another angle, and I'm going to hit P on the keyboard to use the paintbrush, which clears the projectable texture out of the way. And I'm going to go back into layers and I'm going to create a new layer, and we'll call this one face R for right. So, okay, close that, and let's open back up the image manager and grab our same image again. And what we can do is we can line up the ear and the corner of the eye here. So there we go, corner of the eyes lined up. Ear is roughly lined up. Now it's very rare to get an ear to line up perfectly because the textures and the mesh need to they need to be the same size, and ears are very, very, like they're wide ranging in their size and shape. So don't worry too much about that. I've got a specific, like, once again we'll just zoom in on the ear soon and we'll do that manually. Okay, so there we go. So is that side done? Alright, and now we'll do the other side. So hit P again, go to layers, create a new layer, and let's call this one face L cull. Okay, and then image manager and drag this in. Alright, so same deal. I'm lining up the corner of the eye with the ear. So yeah, you want to use these landmarks, these facial landmarks, to make sure that you're projecting the skin at the correct scale, because that's very important in when you're doing realistic characters. Now the eyebrow, yeah, that's working. Okay. So yeah, you just blend until it works, basically. So I'm not blending all the way over onto the front where I'm losing what I already projected. I'm just blending until the stretching goes away, basically. Okay, that looks good. And so the hair cap and things like that, they're going to be filled in using one of those tileable maps. Alright, now the nose has a lot of stretching on it and some missing texture there. Same with the eyes. You can see under the eyelids there's a problem there as well. So now all these regions are going to need some sort of cleanup. Actually, before I do that, I'll just show you how to throw in a tileable just to fill in the scalp. So let's create another layer, and I'm just going to go procedural, pattern, tiled, and then let's call this scalp cull. And then if I pin this and then hold down L on my keyboard, we have cheek tile 1 and 2. So I think I created a 2 because the first one wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but we can easily switch between these two maps. And you can see as soon as I assign that, you can see it covering the surface, and you can also see these seam lines. And we can remove those by instead using a triplanar. So let's just do that just to show you. But we can go to projection, triplanar projection. And so this is going to allow you to project on the surface the texture without those UV seams. And you just need to drop it here into these 3 positions. And then you can see it's heavily tiling at the moment, so we want to really reduce that. So let's take the world scale up to like 100. Okay, so you can see these lines running through. Let's see what the other cheek looks like. Okay, this one looks like it's tiling better, so we'll keep this one. You can still see a bit of a seam here, and I think we can reduce that by adjusting the fall off. So let's go to like 0.5. Alright, that'll do. Okay, so now we can right click on this and go layer mask, add mask, hide all. And it's at the top of our layer stack, so it's going to go over the top of everything else. And now we can make sure we're using the super smooth or super soft, and then make sure I also have these other patches selected because we're wanting to project on these regions. And then I basically just come in with the super soft and I just start blending in the hair. So because this is obviously a CG character, we're going to be adding actual hair, and so we don't really want any hairs to be in our texture, including the eyebrows. I usually keep the eyebrows in until I've added them using, I personally use XGen, but whatever you use to add hair, I kind of leave them in just so if I plan to do any renders beforehand, I still have like some sort of eyebrows because the face, as you probably know, looks really strange without eyebrows. So I'm just coming around here, projecting this in. Alright, So I use the super smooth on the front, but then when I do the rest, I just use like a hard brush. You can see there's a bit of hair here as well. So let's just remove that. So I kind of just take away everything that I don't really necessarily want in the initial projection. And now you can see there is still a scale discrepancy here. So let's go back to the top and let's reduce this even further. 4. Let's go 2. So that was the initial one. So I definitely went overboard there using 100, but anyway. Okay, so now we can come around the back here. And once again, we have stray hairs here on the side of the face. The ear is going to be redone anyway, so I'm not too worried about that, but I will just remove these hairs here. These finer white hairs, like, it depends how picky you're being. These ones are standing out quite a bit, so I would probably remove these. And it blends really, really nicely, so we're not really losing too much of the initial information that was there. There we go. And so the tileable, it's kind of crucial to grab your tileable from, or create the tileable that you're using for the scalp from the same map that you're using to texture, because it'll already be in the same sort of color range and hue and value that you're already projecting on, and so it's going to save you a lot of time. And I'm just gonna go the default brush. It puts down the texture faster. Another thing that I like to do, let me just clear this, what I just projected, is this tool, mirror projecting, has been fantastic. It's only, I can't remember when it was released, but as soon as it got released, I've been using it, and it just speeds up my workflow in terms of yeah, covering a large area. If I know the mesh is relatively symmetrical, this mesh isn't 100% symmetrical, but it doesn't matter, it still picks it up. Now, I would usually use different textures for the neck, but just in terms of covering this up, I'm just going to project this down. Just get rid of all of that gray, basically. Just trying to remove as much of the gray as possible. Another thing I like to do is, you can see it's getting quite dark under the chin here. I like to go to lights, go to light 3, and set that to camera. Now you can see we're really getting a nice view on our mesh. You can see how much stretching is happening here. I don't want to do that. Okay, no, that's fine. I just thought I projected in this area without really seeing what I was doing. Oh, so hitting X on the keyboard will switch between black and white, and because we're dealing with masks, that'll either add or take away. So let's start working on, I'm not going to bother doing this blending here, but we have gotten a nice amount of coverage happening. So let's go to layers again, and let's create another layer, and I kind of just stack on top of one another. And here I'm going to say eyes. Close that. Now the numbers on your keyboard are going to snap to different angles, and so I like to sometimes snap to the angle that I want. In this case, it's 5 for the front. I'm going to turn off the mirror projection, and now we're going to zoom right in here, and we'll do this eye first. So let's open up the image manager again, drag this in. Now, something that's quite cool, if you don't want to be dealing, if you're like projecting details and you don't want to deal with this entire image, something that you can do is go into Image Manager. You can double click on the image, and then using the crop tool, you can crop over a region that you're projecting and then hit crop. So I'll do it for that eye, and I'll do it for this eye. And I'm getting like the surrounding region because I'm not sure how much I'm going to be projecting, but it just helps you really. I did a similar thing for the ears here. So here we go. It just makes it easier. So once again, we want to get the scale right. I also want to zoom in enough. And my initial focus is going to be the lower eyelid. So I want to remove these eyelashes. So I'm just angling, well, first I'm getting the scale right, and then I'm just angling this in a way where I can just come in here with the soft brush and just get as close to the bottom of the eyelid as I can without hitting the eyelashes. And so there we go, that's projected on now. And now she has very veiny eyelids, and I don't mind that detail being in this region here, but I don't really want it on this part of the eye here. So what I might do is, like, you can get creative with your maps, and I'll just like flip this because it's in a similar region, so it should still work. Even though it's not the upper eyelid, it's more the bottom eyelid, it should still work in this case. And there we go. Now we have a little bit spilling over there, so let's just move that out of the way, reproject that, and I think there was a little bit on this side as well. There we go. And now that's cleaned up. And so that's how quick it can be to clean up an eyelid like this. Okay, so there's some regions in here which are missing, so we can go to the UV view, and then we can zoom in here, and we've also got a bit of stretching here as well. So, and also you can see a bit of eyelashes there. So jumping into the UVs is a good idea when you're when you have areas which like haven't been covered basically. So let's zoom out a bit, just so I can see the eyebrow because I want to get scale correct. So I'm basing the scale off the size of the eyebrow, and you just want to roughly get it into the same area. And there we go. I don't mind the little freckle there. Things like that add a realistic touch. So unfortunately that's all we have time for today, but I've shown you the foundations of how I do the initial block out stage of the textural information, as well as cleaning up the eye. I would then go on and do the same for the nose, the mouth, the ears, and then I would use a different projection for the neck, just because it shouldn't be the same tone as the scalp. I'd also be going in and cleaning up this seam, the dark region here, like the contrast between the dark forehead and this area here. But if you're interested in my process and my teaching methods, I do have a Gumroad account where I go over my entire process, start to finish, in every step of the way, showing every step of the way, every tool I use. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this presentation.